So, good morning, or afternoon. We'll give it another minute or so, and then we can start. How's everyone doing? Let me just check the music volume. See how the music is. See if that is not too loud. Sounds pretty good. Right, there might have been an echo. I was just checking the stream. High as fuck. Good for you, bro. Friday's the new Saturday. That's what I'm hearing. And Thursday's the new Friday. Alright, so yeah, we're gonna have a good amount to talk about today. Obviously, let me open my window. Obviously, we had the whole tariff stuff on Wednesday. You know, the rally into the tariffs was strange, to be fair. We sort of got this rally into the tariffs, like someone was pre-positioning for some sort of outcome that wasn't expected. I mean, at the end of the day, like the only outcome that could have been positive from the tariffs was the idea that he'd have reduced the, what he said he was gonna give other countries, right? And I think it, majority of them came in actually like a higher percentage than what was expected. So that's why we saw sort of the pullback from the market. And I think we would have seen this anyway. And just because we were, already trading up, we basically just went back down to the weekly open, right? And then again here, for me, this like the move overnight was a short covering rally. If you followed me last night, then we caught a nice long, and I exited pretty much towards the top today. Once I started to see a bunch of longs trapped offside, it's standard price action from BTC and from participants in the market, right? Participants never change. We can see that sort of into the lows we had some shorts start to enter, which is basically where I took my long. We longs down here or here, I can't remember. But overall it was a nice place into this like sort of composite value area, low area. We swept the poor lows from back in, pretty much I was looking for a reversal back higher. And we got that, so happy days. Caught a nice long and sold it, like I said, just before you just onto this breakdown. Basically, when we started to get a bunch of these longs offside, right? Classic participants. The whole move up was basically shorts covering, meaning that when price is rising, we see a decrease in open interest, so contracts are leaving the market, right? With an increasing price, that's pretty much telling us that shorts are exiting the market, right? And then we start getting into the highs, and we start to liquidate some shorts up here. People decide that it's a great time as soon as we start to look to break out, that they all want to enter the market, and you can see this huge increase in OI, along with a decent amount of delta as well, right? In this 1 5-minute candle we had. 78 mil of delta, like so, you know, quite a lot of longs entering up there. And then as soon as we you know, position these guys offside, we can see how the market starts to flush, right? And that's basically when I exited my long, was back here. But yeah, from here, I think, you know, designated, or we're destined for lower. I think we're still on that trend, we're still on that path lower. And I'll talk a little bit about my reasoning why I think we can still sweep lower. You know, today we had sort of China come back and say what tariffs it's gonna give America, right? So, you know, we are seeing that tariff war right now, but it was expected that these countries were always going to retaliate, right? We knew that there was always going to be a bit of a tariff war going on, and so what you had was a bunch of longs positioning in, followed by some negative news, you know, and that's what gave us that flush this morning, and we're back down towards yesterday's lows. So yeah, personally, I think we are still going to trade down towards 80k. Unfortunately, I did not get filled on my short position. I was actually looking for 85k as a trigger. We had a naked point of control from Wednesday's move down, along with a single print from Wednesday's move down as well, and we just sort of front run my area, unfortunately. I did see this long start to pile in, but there wasn't enough. Basically, I wanted that little drive higher into 85k, and I was being greedy, and since then we've sort of seen a reversal. So when we look at composites, so this composite I'm talking about here goes all the way back from start of March. Basically, we have a composite, like a 5-day composite between 83.6 and 8500, and we're back trading within that composite now, right? We can see that back within the composite. So, you know, a rule of thumb is that we're going to trade back down to the, oh, I just deleted the composite value area high. With rule of thumb is that we're going to trade back down towards the composite value area low, especially after seeing the deviation we've seen today. Right, deviation above the composite value area high, good chance we're going to trade down to that composite value area low. So pretty much from here, the only place I am interested in looking for longs now is under 80k. Unless, you know, I would never say never. A lot of the time, right, I just react to what participants are doing, and if something pops up, then so be it. Like yesterday, for example, my idea was to long 8400, but I started to see some good signs of reversal into here, so I took a long, right? So, you know, as of right now, I think we can still roll over into 8400, but you know, we could potentially do something like this, right? I'm not gonna write off any scenario. So I'll look for maybe another long trigger today. If we don't get that, then to be honest, I'm not gonna short down here. I'd short back up towards 83.6, something like that, if we can get it. We have stocks open in an hour, so we've got a little bit of time to maybe get some trades out. Personally, I'm not a massive fan of trading New York as of lately. It's been a pretty rough open to trade, and I'll talk about that a little bit now. Like, unless you can sort of pre-position before New York and sort of go risk-free on your trade, it's not exactly the best environment to try and look for an entry like into New York. Like I said, unless you're pre-positioned. Basically, so this pink value area, this is the initial balance high and an initial balance low. This is taken from the first hour of trading of the session, or the first two 30-minute candles from a trading session. And there's been a pretty common trend from New York session lately that the imbalance is always massive. So what you get is like price like moves into New York Open, and then what happens is you usually get some sort of like whipsaw price action, or we go up and then we whipsaw down, and then basically it does nothing for the session. And then what you get in this first like hour of trading is this huge initial balance, right? So what is the initial balance high and the initial balance low, which is what you can see on this chart here. But you can basically see like initial balances usually are fairly small. You don't get much, like in sessions, you don't get too much movement at the moment. But in a CME session, we always get these huge initial balances, and then following that, we just have like a bracketing market. And you can see here we get like a huge initial balance, and then price done nothing for New York session. Again here, went down, whipsawed back up, and then we had just like the rest of the session done nothing. Again here, whipsawed down, bounced up, you get this huge initial balance between 83,550 and 81,600, and then for the rest of the session price done nothing. So yesterday my trade, it's been a pretty common trend lately that we sort of like bottom in Asia and rally into London, or like pre-close Asia, rally into London. So which is why I took the trade yesterday. But I'm not really too fussed about trying to take a fresh long today into CME Open, into New York Open, because of this reason. If anything, like it's good to try and catch the whipsaw. So for example, if New York done something like this and we had a nice trigger into the low, then we could try and long, if we have some like good signs of a bottom into here, because a lot of the time it will just whipsaw up. But I wouldn't recommend like pre-positioning now into New York and then like pre-positioning now into New York, then you get taken out and then it whipsaws, right? So yeah, trying to trade like into New York Open is pretty rough, but a lot of the time you can trade like following that whipsaw. So basically if we whipsaw up here, I'm pretty sure you could short and it will whipsaw back, and it'll probably do this for the rest of the session, and vice versa. It would probably whipsaw down here, like maybe back up like this, and then do nothing for that session. Then you get that balance formed. It's been a pretty common trend lately. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how New York opens, obviously, because now we have China hitting back with their tariffs. So we might see a bit of a whipsaw price action on New York Open. So moving on to talking about maybe like the higher time frame, the strength for BTC, because there's a lot I want to talk about. Now I've sort of discussed my intraday thoughts. So overall, you know, my plan remains the same until we can basically get back above 86k on BTC. I think we're destined for new lows. New lows being under 80k, or even as low as 73k, which is where I have fresh spot bids. I have fresh spot bids at 73k. And I think, you know, anywhere from sub 80 under these lows, like I don't see a world where these lows don't get swept on BTC. Down here at these lows, like for me, there's no way we bottom like this. There's not a chance in hell that we bottom without sweeping these lows first. So which is why, you know, I'm talking about getting a sweep into that 8400 basically being the place I'm going to look for a reversal. Because if we don't hold 8400 and we don't hold this composite value area low, Pretty much a deviation under here. I think we target 73k, which is where, you know, I have spot bids on BTC with an invalidation under 66k. So talking about the higher time frame on BTC, it's been pretty like clean breakouts on Bitcoin. Like if you go back to sort of all the range breaks we've had, you know, it's kind of been as simple as buying a huge impulsive candle out of the range to truly break this like sort of meme line downtrend. You know, meme line because they are a meme line, but you know, back in June we broke from the trend and we basically legged up. Back in October we broke from the trend and we legged up. And like even the summer range last year, like it was as simple as buying the like a big breakout from the daily downtrend, right? And we legged up. And you know, we can see we're capped by the same sort of trend yet again on BTC. So pretty much like if we can get above 86k, which I'll talk about now, if like we get this like decent break from BTC above like from this daily mean line and above 86k, I'm fairly sure we launch like for Q2 into like 100k. I really think it should be as simple as that, especially if we can get back above 86k. 86k comes from currently what is the developing yearly value area low. So the developing yearly value area low is a very important place for us to keep an eye on, right? Basically, since we lost the developing yearly value area low back in February, we have failed to like get above here with any strength back inside the developing yearly value. So, you know, as of right now, that developing yearly value area low is 85,385. So we kind of want to see a break and a reclaim back above here, and we probably just trend for Q2, right? It was also, you know, at the time, because we've only just moved into a new quarter, it was also the 2025 Q1 value area low. This is a nice place to get above as well. You know, we can already see that we've rejected from that area back on tariff day. But I think until we get above this 2025 Q1 value area low, like we're destined to sweep these lows and maybe even as low as 73, right? And again, you know, I think if we went to 73, I wouldn't be fearful. For me, this is a fantastic buying opportunity to form this sort of like three drive-ins of the lows, you know, and potentially even go as low as 72.7 to fill into this 2024 Q4 val. You know, after all, we are trading below the Q4 VWAP, right? You kind of treat these as a range. So the overall like short term, I'm like bearish, but I wouldn't say like quote unquote bearish, because I expect that any drop we get is going to be a fantastic buy opportunity. And I'll go also onto another reason why I think we can drop. But overall, yeah, first place for a reversal is under 80k, looking for a long back towards sort of like 86. We fail to hold there, then we're probably going to trade down towards like 72, 73, 72 for our final bottom. And the only reason why I would flip this bias is if we flip 86k. If we get above 86k, then I'm pretty sure, like I said, we're destined for like 100k and then maybe even new highs in May. Due to like macro things as well, I think this is very possible that we form new highs in May. So talking about structure on BTC, this is not a type of price action I enjoy. It's called RPA. I invented the name for it myself to highlight what this sort of price action was called. And I get the name from this. I like to call it the Raccoon PA. The classic. 8400 is a place I would like to look for longs. As you can see, you know where I get the name from now. Kind of arched like a raccoon's back here. So that's where the name comes from. RPA, Raccoon PA. It's just a name for it. It was a type of price action I like to use a lot in the downside. So they're good like downside momentum setups. And basically what happens is you find a support area. In our case, we have a support here. And basically every time we come into this support area, we form a lower high, right? You know, I mean, you can even draw it. You can draw it like this if you want to be like specific. Like it's an area. So we come into this area, lower high, eventually bounces, lower high, bounces, lower high, right? So for me, you know, what I like to sort of think of it graphically is that this is basically a wall, right? Right. And every time we're sort of punching into this wall, right? It's getting weaker and weaker, yeah? And we know there's weakness here because of the lower highs, right? If this level was strong, right? Then there's a good chance that every time we would bounce into here, we would form a higher high, right? But instead we're forming lower highs. So this is telling us, for me, that there's potential exhaustion from demand. And a lot of the time when you see exhaustion from demand, that means one thing. You need to sweep lower. So we can shift this trend, right? And then you can see it basically like live here, right? What happens? Support. Every time we come into the support, lower high, lower high, lower high. Eventually fails, rolls over, right? So that's another reason why, like price action wise, I think there's a good chance of us sweeping on BTC. James, how's it going, man? So overall, like I have a lot of confluences for a move lower. You know, at least to sweep these lows for a long. And if I don't get a trigger for a long here, then we look at sweeping under this low into 72, 73 for our true bottom. You know, this would give max fear to a lot of people down here. And you know, this is a good opportunity to buy. Right, you want to buy the fear. So let's go on to talk about the so-called strength we are seeing from BTC compared to stocks, and I think it's a bit of a grey area to say strength, but like obviously stocks had yesterday their worst day in 4 years. Pretty much the only day worse than that was COVID. So, you know, to consider that BTC didn't make new lows is a positive. But you have to think that we have been pretty exhausted and trading down for a while now. Right? Like if we pair BTC against S&P 500, excuse me. Stuffed an omelette before I got on stream, so now I have indigestion. Right. You know, considering like what stocks are doing, like BTC is holding pretty well. But I think, you know, I think that it can play catch up. I do believe like its strength, and to me that doesn't, you know, yes we are we are showing very, very positive signs and a lot of strength. But I don't think that means that we still can't trade lower. But I do think it is a very clear and positive sign for the next few months that we are sort of not necessarily decoupling, but showing strength against stocks on BTC. And you have to put that down to like maybe we are like, you know, we're 30% off the highs already. So realistically, there isn't that much more selling to be done to the downside. I do think there is a chance that we can play catch up. Like I said, you know, I don't like these lows yet. I do think that we can sweep these at some point before legging up on BTC. But this is a nice outlook for the next few months, and the idea that we have strength in the market again is a very good sign. It doesn't mean that we're going to exactly bottom from here. Like, oh, BTC didn't make new lows, that means we're not going to break down, right? We shouldn't view it like that. But we should at least view the positive side of things, that we didn't make new lows, and that's a good step. So. Any scam pumpers as a shorty? Yeah, I agree. I'm saying I kind of, yeah, we have numbers in literally, yeah, 1 minute. Sort of into CME, if we get some whipsaw price action, I like the look of we get some whipsaw price action, I like the look of a short. But well, equally a long, right? Like if we go into sort of New York, if we done something like this in New York, I think I would short. And if we done something like this in New York, I think I would long. And basically look for the mean reversion on either of them. Yeah, so we have numbers in 1 minute. Oh, I guess came positive. What's just going on? What happened? None of my news sources posted. Well, here anyway. 228. Bro, these are massive misses again. There were massive misses on unemployment claims on. Oh no, it wasn't unemployment claims, was it? Oh, it's a non-farm employment change. Like, that's a huge miss. 170k. And unemployment rate came in higher. So we have New York open in 1 hour. Pretty much looking for. I mean, I'd like to short into this composite value area high, like 83, 800. And roll over, like so. Basically, I basically want to short. If I use this tool, to be honest. So this is option 1. Look for triggers for a short into here on New York Open. That's option 1. If we don't get triggers, then I'm pretty sure we can run the high into the MPOC, and that's option 2. So I'll be looking at either options You know, I don't really ever sort of concrete and say this is only the option I'm looking at, because if we did trade into here and I got no trigger, then there's probably a good chance it goes to option 2. So I don't trade with definites a lot of the time. So for me, it's like if. So like if New York Open moves into here, this is the first place I'm going to look at. If we get good signs of reversal here, then I'll take a short. You know, if not, I'll probably go higher. But at that point, you got to think, right? If we V-shape this whole, I guess you could call it FUD from the China tariffs, then that would probably look pretty positive. I'm not going to lie. Like if we V-shape this whole move. So, you know, realistically, I would want to probably only short here. Now I think about it. Like if we popped up, right? Like this is the one place I'd want to short, because if we pop up and we basically V-shape this whole reversal, like yes, this is a nice place to short, but I don't think I would short into a structure like that, because I think it would just continue. So, okay. Going back to what I said, this is basically the only place I would look to a short, and if I get a trigger, then I'll short here. All right, I think I've said my piece with Bitcoin and been, you know, pretty vocal on my thoughts on it. So we can take a look at some altcoins. I'm getting to the point now where altcoins start to have interest back in alts. Like I've just been sort of like trading at the moment. I haven't really had interest in altcoins, but I think, you know, if we start getting sub 80 again, this is when I'm going to start looking at scaling into spot alts. Change that color. What's it? Where's the... $83,242. Yeah, this looks nice for a short. Now we have the developing weekly VWAP. 83,800. I think this is the place for a short if we get a little pop in New York Open today. Where's my chat box? It's not coming up on my screen. Oh, it's behind stuff. Unemployment up, but NFP up. Try and squares. Wait, unemployment up and NFP up. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Oh, he did say he was going to lay off a bunch, didn't he? Feel free to send some chart requests. I don't know how long I want to stay on stream for. Like we got New York open at 2:30. I don't know if I'll stay on stream for another hour. Also, both. I was speaking today as well. It's tiring, guys, isn't it? Tiring. I'm positive. I'm very positive for Q2. I was positive for Q1 until, I mean, basically until we broke down from 94k, and then, you know, pretty much I bought the lows on that original sweep, and then as soon as we rolled over on this original sweep, that was it for me. I was like, okay, we're probably just going to chop for the rest of the month. And done pretty well to sort of adapt to conditions towards the end of February into March and April. And I think a lot of people really suffered. Still trying to trade altcoins during this period, or like buy altcoins in this period. But like we are slowing up now. You know, when we look at in terms of bottoms and prior bottoms from BTC, that we see these sort of like slow bottoms before a breakout, right? You know, we're getting there. I think we're very close now. And then when we pair that with, you know, the M2 and how well we're trailing the M2 at the moment. And the M2 I think is still in new highs, which is a good sign. Can you talk more about how you use autoflow to get into recent trades? Yeah, sure. I'll discuss that now. M2 has only just started like peeling off a little bit, like slowing up. But historically, we're around 2 months behind the top of the M2. So 10th of March, you know, that projects us like 2 months behind, right? We can see when the M2 topped in September, we topped in December. Then again here, December, we topped in March, so 2 or 3 months. So it's projecting us for like a May, June new highs on BTC, which sits nice with me. Pre-summer, rally into pre-summer. Okay, so can you talk more about how you use order flow to get into recent trades? So you can so if you don't have access to Exo charts, you can use sort of like Velo data, but this is not as grainy as Exo, like as footprint charts. You know, with footprint, you're really looking on the grainiest level you can get. Like you can't really see as much. But unless you're looking at footprint, you don't realistically know like what's happening inside a candle, right? Unless maybe you're using a DOM as well. So I tried to learn DOM once and it's scary and confusing. So a good way to like start off with order flow, like a basics way, is to use Velo charts. I can send a link in the chat. And understand the use of like open interest and CVD. I get like with price. Basically, you want to just simply try and understand what's happening in a move. So if we take today's example if we take today's move for example, we can see on BTC that we had a huge amount of open interest enter into the highs, and quite a lot of longs entering as well. When we look at my footprint chart, we can see, so this is aggregated data with Binance and also Bybit, and we can basically see with the huge rising delta with open interest as we move into the prior weekly val. So a pretty key area for price. You know, overall, this is where I was looking for a rejection. Got greedy waiting for 85k and unfortunately didn't get my fill for a short. But what we could see is that once, you know, these positions, like long positions, are offside, we can see the huge flush out of open interest. So basically all the longs that had entered into the highs, trying to time a breakout, got caught offside. So that's one way you can use order flow, is to try and trade against larger participants that are potentially offside and trapped, which is sort of how I like to use footprint as well, but on a much grainier level. And you can use like very, very low time frames. So I'm using a tick chart that shows me a print every time BTC moves $100 rather than time, because when you trade like footprint, you can almost see time as an irrelevant, I don't know what you call it. Time is just irrelevant basically, and you're simply trading, you know, following flow and trading against people's positions, especially on Bybit as well. You have a lot of apes trading on Bybit, which is why I use it. For example, this was following my long position I took last night. We see a decent amount of sellers enter into the low, following that bounce with some nice volume coming from buyers as well. And once these positions are offside, we can see price start to rally away from them. Can also be as simple as buying long liquidations. There's a little bit more to it than just buying when longs get liquidated. But that's also a nice way to scout bounces, is huge long liquidations coming in, equally with the short side of things as well. But this was a textbook sort of short setup today. Prior weekly value area low, BTC trades into the prior weekly value area low. As soon as these positions got offside, we can see how price starts to flush them out, and we can see these red splodges almost. These are long liquidations. So to summarize, really, like, there's many ways you can use order flow. I think that's not something I can make clear to you here. The exact way I use it for many different ways, but the main way is sort of trading reversals and trading against players who are offside, so to speak. So, you know, when price moves into resistance, a lot of the time I'm looking for a short, obviously, and when price moves into support, I'm looking for a long. You know, simple stuff. But more so, my triggers are when you get a lot of shorts entering into support, and equally when you get a lot of longs entering into resistance. You know, pretty much that's how I'm looking at it. It's just sort of like an execution, a way of executing on a trade, because I think, you know, until you actually know what's happening within a candle, you're I wouldn't say you're like gambling on the direction, but Like it's more EV to actually know what is happening within a candle and why price is moving, rather than just saying there's a line here. Price rejected off this place 2 times before. Okay, it must reject off it a 3rd time, right? You know, and footprint we use footprint to look at what's actually happening here and seeing whether it's worth taking a position or not. That makes sense. I just use it for extra confluence on my trades. And personally, like my exit today on this trade was perfect, right? You know, it front run my TP. Like if I saw our long was from down here. So we longed from down here, right? And I literally sold as soon as I saw triggers to exit. So my TP was going to be around 85k as of this morning, right? But as soon as I started to see all of these longs come like position offside, then I exited the trade, right? And honestly, without footprint, I probably wouldn't have exited that trade. And if I did exit it, it would have been simply because of I panicked, right? Because price started trading down away from my TP. So I would have panicked, right? But because I was using footprint, I managed to say, okay, all of these longs that are now built up here are now offside. That's good enough for me to exit the trade because we're probably going to flush. So I managed to exit my trade like in a pretty swift manner. And I think that's truly down to order flow because I knew why we were trading down, right? Whereas before, if I wasn't looking at order flow, it would have broken down and I probably would have got to here and thought, okay, fuck it, I'm going to take profit. And then already it's already down 2% off the highs and I've just round trips like my 4% long, right? Like 50% of my long. Yeah. Is it better to use Bybit USDT on instead of Bybit USD for order flow? What am I using? Yeah, I'm using USDT, yeah. Linear USDT with aggregated from Binance USDT as well. I think that's something that people struggle with. I struggled with initially when trading order flow, is that like there's so many different like Bitcoin flows you can look at. It can be quite overwhelming, right? I'd like a sweep of 8,700 lows with some long looks. Yeah, that's pretty much the same place I'm looking for. That's pretty much the same place I'm looking for. I think we can short 8,300 today for a sweep back down towards 8,500. Why do you use a terminal to trade? Because you get a lot faster execution on a terminal. And also I can have it literally next to my exo charts. I can basically click on the chart to go into position. It's as easy as that. Especially when you're trading like such fast price movements and tick charts on exo, you want pretty fast entry exit execution, right? I found using a terminal has been faster than trading Bybit directly. Yeah, I mean, these lows, today's lows are ugly as well. 4 lows on today's profile. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I think any move we get in New York Open, I think we can probably maybe scam pump a bit. And maybe not as high as 85k, but yeah, I think we just try and fade any scam pump in New York today. Into 83, 800. Like until we can flip 86k, you know, probably destined for lower. Yeah, it's built into EXO. You can, on EXO charts on the desktop version, you can add a web chart. So you can have everything here. You can have terminals. So in Silico, Till Street, or Vermitrader. You can also add your journals here. You can add exchanges. You can actually add coin analyze. So I have added Velo. So Velo data that I was showing you earlier, I can actually add Velo data on here. Instead of me using my browser, I can just use Velo data on ExoCharts. Yeah. Are they poor lows because there are only 2 squares? Yeah, so what you'll find is that it's almost like this double bottom. So you have the a 2-letter print at the lows. A lot of the time you want like a sell tail or a buy tail at tops and bottoms. What you'll see is that a lot of the time, I mean, it's a pretty nice example if I reset this profile. Reset, please. Oh, that is reset. Wait, it's not. There's this profile. So we had a poor low here, right? On the Monday, the 31st of March. Price literally swept this poor low and we bounced, right? That's why they're pretty nice. We also have a poor low from back here. 81,100, which I think also gets taken. It doesn't also have to be like stacked like this. You can also get a ledge profile, which again is not that clean. A ledge profile. I think yeah, this is kind of a ledge, not too much. It's kind of an ugly high. I can't remember the actual. It's been a while since I learned market profiles, so I kind of forget the terminology and the actual reasoning for stuff. Now I just look at market profile and know what I'm looking for. Do you know what I mean? It was probably maybe 2.53 years ago since I sort of like was actually learning about market profile. Now I just see price move into line and go boing, pretty much. So price has spent no time there? No, single prints is when you'll see that price spent like no time there. You'll see, right? That was just a wick. So pretty nice sell tail on that day overall. You can see here quite a lot of time was spent. I mean, the composite point of control was here. So obviously this was 68% of the traded time was within this profile here, between 87,900 and 86,700. But because you have quite a few letters towards the top of the profile, there was quite a few attempts at moving up outside of this value. I mean, we had equal highs here and we swept them, and that's what the sell tail printed. But you can see here, right? W. So basically every every 30-minute print is a new letter. So we can see today, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And this is expanded text, right? We can put the text into the profile and it looks like this, and get rid of the candles as well. When I expand the text and the clusters. So basically what we can see that, you know, we have that sort of like double bottom, right? Here, we have that double bottom where the W and X both printed the same price into the low, and then we get left with this poor low. I mean, you could even say it's a pretty ugly high as well. A lot of the time you just want kind of like a sell tail or a buy tail. Like usually it's a pretty good sign of a finished auction at the highs or the lows. What was this on? Let's actually see. We are rallying back into New York Open. To use on this M30 candle. Yeah, this was actually, yeah. So you had a sale tail on that M30 chart, and you also have finished auction at the top, if I'm correct. On the R side. So with the finished auction, you can basically see that the bid side ate up all the asks. Like also down here, we don't have a finished auction, and this is also our poor low. So for me, I wouldn't say that this is that price. You know, if we didn't have poor lows here and we had a finished auction, then I would assume that we don't revisit that price in the near term. Bouncing into New York, man. See how this goes. All right, send some chart requests. Been on for an hour now, so we'll do some chart requests and then we can wrap up the stream. Oh, James, you asked about XRP, didn't you? Let me have a look for you. You're gonna say, Mr. President, you're so tired of winning. Hey, I'll tell you, we're tired. tired, Mr. President. Well, we're getting the move up I wanted in New York, so let's see. Maybe some mean reversion. We're gonna we're just, as soon as stocks open, like, we just basically do what stocks do, pretty much. XRP. I think we spoke about this, didn't we, James? Yeah, you wanted a sweep under like 1.3, didn't you? Yeah, I think if BTC breaks down, this is definitely going sub 1.6. 100%. Yeah, probably want to sweep under 1.7 into 1.6. Although this is not a bad reclaim. Kind of like a little lower time frame deviation, maybe an intraday play. Good to move up today. Could probably take something like that. Target these highs, maybe. No, kind of an awkward stop. Like, if your stop's quite wide, then you've got pretty shit risk reward on it. Probably just have your stop under that low. I'm not trading ops at the moment, but you could probably do something like that intraday if New York looks positive. But I think higher time frame, it's gonna trade to 1.7. Aping again, man. Like, look at, like, huge OI into the composite value or high. New York Open, like I said, I won't position into New York, to be honest. But yeah, maybe if we get a spike up on New York into 84k, we can look to fade, especially if these longs keep up. Right. 83,900 developing weekly VWAP, composite value or high. I mean, you can just see right now we're just trading within sort of like balance, right? Within this balance here. Yeah. This composite. This is the 3-day composite. This 3-day composite. This one here. This 3-day composite. So I think, yeah. I don't think it's, you know, and then we got that much larger composite, right? Which is this one here. But it's been a while since, well, we haven't tested the composite value area low yet, which I think we are due to do. So that's sort of like the plan today, is that if we sort of pop into 84k, I'm looking for that extra push lower down towards this composite value area low. And sweeping these lows here. Keep deleting my lines. $49.2. $2. Are liquidation heat maps reliable? I wouldn't. They're not unreliable. I would say they're more reliable than heat maps themselves, right? Like, so. Just like standard heat maps, yeah. Like liquidity heat maps. I think, you know, liquidation heat maps are also reliable. I wouldn't swear by them. Like, because like at the end of the day, like that's someone's liquidation, but it doesn't mean, you know, they technically, you know, as long as they've got extra margin to add from somewhere else, they can continue to save their liquidation, right? Like they might have margin elsewhere that they can back up their trade with, right? It's the same with heat maps. Like a heat map for where orders are, it's as simple as someone just removing the order. Yeah, like spoofing order books, yeah. All right, I'm gonna call that a stream. There's not really much I want to do right now, and I sort of said my piece and my thoughts. So this is my first stream, and I like what being explained and used. Where can I find more of this? Well, you can join the Discord where I'm posting stuff every day. That's in the description of the stream. I'm posting like daily trades and thoughts and write-ups on order flow. Other than that, if there's not something you have access to, you can just go on YouTube. Axia YouTube have some videos on YouTube. AXIA Axia. And there's a few guys around. Abe trades on Twitter. He's a very useful guy to follow. I always show him because, you know, he's one of the guys that helps me, you know, not help me directly, like I didn't know him, but I read a bunch of his content when I first got into order flow, and it was a very nice place to start as well. Yeah, Wealth Group. Yeah, that's where I post my that's where I post all my trades and stuff, and my thoughts and everything like that. Axia, and then you also got Abe ABE trades. All right, that's it for this week's stream. Appreciate everyone stopping by. It was a good one. Links to socials and stuff are in the description. I'm going to be doing these weekly from now on, along with probably some live trading over the course of next week. I've been pretty busy with stuff this week, but next week I'm gonna focus on doing some more day trading and live trading. So expect another stream next week, like live scalping. Not as much like market talking, more just like charts and waiting and stuff. So see you guys. Have a good weekend.